Included in the agenda package this afternoon, we had a draft bylaw for the temporarily mandating the wearing of face coverings in indoor public places and public vehicles. So I've reviewed a number of municipal bylaws from Alberta communities, and they're fairly consistent. There's a few discussion points, though, I'd like to go over with council. Is your speaker on? So in section 3, section 1 is the title, which will be Temporary Mandatory Face Coverings Bylaw. Number 2 are the definitions referred to in this bylaw. Number 3, face coverings. 3.1 is pretty straightforward. 3.2, there's a few different ways that this could be triggered to come into effect. The majority of the bylaws that I read, they use the Alberta Health Services with the designation of watched or enhanced as the trigger. So rather than it being the CAO or Director of Emergency Management, they've put the onus on Alberta Health Services, or AHS, to say once we're in an enhanced watched / enhanced status, then that would trigger the provisions within the bylaw. In number 4.1a, there's 2 schools of thought on this, where the bylaw would not apply to the following persons, and number A is persons under the age of 10. There's a number of bylaws, it's about a 50-50 split, where some are under the age of 2. And then there's a requirement put in for face masks for children aged 2 to 5. So personally, I thought number 10 would be best. It's also much easier to enforce with an age of 10. The others are pretty, the other exceptions are pretty standard in the bylaws. So it does not apply to schools or other educational facilities, hospital and healthcare facilities, childcare facilities, or areas exclusively accessed or used by the public places employees or a public vehicle operator, provided that physical barriers or physical distancing practices are implemented between any person not required to wear a face covering by operation of this exemption and any other person. So in a taxi, as an example, it would be a barrier or a shield. Some of this was also for a public transit, which isn't applicable in Vegreville. Under section 5 for enforcement, a peace officer, where a peace officer believes a person has contravened any provision of this bylaw, a peace officer may issue a violation ticket in accordance with the Provincial Offences Procedure Act. If a violation ticket is issued for an offense under this bylaw, the violation ticket may specify the fine amount established in the bylaw for this offense, or require a person to appear in court without the alternative making a voluntary payment. Issued a ticket with a fine, You can make the voluntary payment equal to the specified fine amount. I've also added a clause in that says the town of Vegreville has the discretion to enforce this bylaw and is not liable if any outcomes should a peace officer decide not to enforce this bylaw if acting in good faith. So what we are looking at there is this would give the town the ability to have an education program for the face mask before a ticket is issued. So the offense would be a person found guilty of an offense under this bylaw is a fine not less than $100, and I'll review that when we get to Schedule A. One other point for discussion is Section 7 for signage. An employer or proprietor must prominently display a sign in the form containing the content outlined in Schedule B, and we have a draft copy here, in a location that is visible to a person immediately upon entering the public place or a public vehicle. And then there is a fine if the employer or proprietor does not post the sign, showing that a person must wear a mask. I think that's about it for being straightforward for the remainder of the bylaw. So Schedule A are the penalties. So the failure to wear a face covering or mask where required is $100, and the failure to display prescribed signage as shown in Schedule B is $200. So, and of the bylaws that I reviewed that had a penalty for the signage, $200 was the amount. And I have seen all of the bylaws with the exception of one of the 12 that I read, the fine has been $100. So.
Okay, so we asked him to bring in something that we would look at for a bylaw.
Oh.
Feedback. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Maybe I didn't plug the light. Okay, so sorry about that. So we asked him to bring a form of a bylaw forward so we could look at it, and now we're looking at one. So.
Okay, so I think most of it seems pretty straightforward. The only two areas that to me I have a little bit of concern is going over 2.8, sort of deciding how we enact it. I would like to discuss that a bit more as a group. I don't like the if you're on the watch, because that I've watched float around. I'd either like to see a number attached or discuss enhanced. I'm not sure how I feel about the watch. The other part that I would want to discuss a little bit further is the 2.8 as far as when the bylaw is repealed. I do know exactly what you're talking about, Cliff, and that's how a lot of them were worded. My concern with something is we've watched groups be enhanced today and not enhanced tomorrow. Like I would almost rather see if it becomes valid because we hit a certain threshold to then say that it would be in place for say 1 month, then it would either be extended or rescinded. I'm a little concerned that if we do it based upon provincial health guides or health order where it's enhanced, it could be enhanced today, not tomorrow, enhanced there. So I think I would like to see more of a time frame attached. So those are my 2 preliminary thoughts on it.
Okay, so the Can you hear me just on the computer? Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, so like I said, the latter part of your conversation, or the first part is a little tricky about what's going to trigger us to bring this bylaw into effect. Right. So being on an enhanced or the watch list from the province, you feel is you don't like that, you would like to put a number within our municipality to it, or?
Well, my reason to it is the watch particularly, because the watch, I've heard different numbers be quoted on the watch, which is one of my concerns. And the enhanced, again, it comes in a little bit, I would just like us all to talk about what we're comfortable when we make that move, because like we were here a week ago, 1 number away. Now we're down again, we're up. Sometimes I would like to see the number be, I'm not talking about being double an enhanced number or anything like that, but I would like more to see a number. If enhanced makes it 10, I'd like us to say our number, say 15 is our trigger, or whatever. I'm just throwing out there. I prefer a number, but particularly just the rescinding is the bigger one for me, because to me, I don't want us to have a mask thing that's supposedly valid today, not tomorrow. I would want a time frame kind of attached to it, I think.
I can speak to the definition of watched enhanced. Alberta Health has combined, so it's one definition now. There is no distinction between a watch and enhanced. So they've made this one designation. Okay, so it was. And so to streamline things that way, AHS has combined it into one. So, and as far as any rescinding or effect on the bylaw, I just had when how did I word it? When the provincial health orders are rescinded. We can also add a time period after the health orders, like a period of 2, 3, 4 weeks as an example. Okay.
Yeah, just a little curious on that as well as the number of the watched or enhanced. So right now when we see it's Minburn County that has the count, not Vegreville proper. So how do we determine where that comes into play?
So in talks with AHS today, the enhanced numbers are from the County of Minburn as an entire health region, not the town of Vegreville is not separated. So it's the entire county number that would trigger that enhanced.
Okay, so, but that's not good enough for our bylaw. So the conversation, we had a town hall the other day with the Premier and Dr. Hinshaw and a couple of different ministers, and a lot of municipalities brought up the same fact, that they have ceilings or trigger mechanisms built into their masking bylaws that don't do it justice, because when it's the whole county that they're talking about. The Premier said to leave that with, that he was going to work on that this week. So, but no matter what, the Alberta Health should be able to give the municipality, this organization, the numbers for our community. Go ahead.
So after a number of phone calls today, I was told no from Alberta Health Services. They sent me through kind of like a, to the geospatial map where it's supposed to be the Vegreville number, but it still says Vegreville/Minburn County. But as for getting direct addresses, like number of people that have Vegreville addresses, they would not release that at this time. So unless the Premier is working on something this week, hopefully, but they won't release information to, and even myself as the Director of Emergency Management, they would not release that information.
Okay, so I will definitely follow up on this through our MLA and through the Premier's office, because anybody that has the bylaw right now and it hinges on the ceiling account number are in the same predicament as we are in. The Premier said that he was going to look into that.
I had the same question regarding 3.2, the section 3.2 about the town of Vegreville, County of Minburn. So that was my question as well.
Well, thank you for admin for preparing this for us to be able to consider. I think some of the questions that we're having and have had in the past really just illustrate again that it would have been great for the province to take the onus away from each of us as municipalities. It's very difficult for us to make this decision, and whether we decide to go with a watch or enhanced or with a trigger number, either way, it puts the onus back on a municipality, and it isn't ultimately our responsibility. That said, I appreciate that there are a lot of different parts to this piece of information and documentation. My questions would be, if we do go with 3.2 with the watch or enhanced designation, how do we communicate with that with the public? So it's becoming very obvious that globally everybody's becoming a little bit fatigued, and the shaking of fingers and the reprimands that are coming through, whether it's the chief medical officers or provincial leaders or premiers in different provinces giving their citizens a scolding, people aren't listening anymore. So I'm just curious, how would we communicate that to our citizens if it became, a Friday update on the weekend? How do we communicate that? The second thing I would say is 4.1A. I do have a bit of a concern with using the age of 10, just because Elk Island Public is the majority of the students that live in the community, and their students are all wearing masks from kindergarten right up. So that means 4 and 5-year-olds all the way to grade 12 are wearing them. Elk Island Catholic doesn't have quite the same stringent rules, but that to me maybe seems a little bit old, using that number of 10. Kids have been doing that already for 3 months and have adapted very well. And then the next question would be on 7.1 about signage. Would we prepare that information for our businesses? I know that Strathcona County has had a very effective campaign designed by one of our residents, actually, who is the communications person there. And they have carried on to having little vignettes and talking about different things, including a very effective social media and regular media campaign. So those are my 3 questions.
Okay, in terms of your first question, Councillor Rudick, the communications, we would be forwarding the Government of Alberta website information. And secondly, we would, I am currently working on an FAQ document that would correspond to this bylaw, and taking down the questions here and have that available on our website. Plus, I believe His Worship had asked last week about putting together a public education campaign, and if that is something that council is interested in, I've started working on some key points that other communities have been focusing on, so we can do a public education. I think that's probably our best option right now is to start educating people and get information out. And like you said, there are people that are not following the rules, and I said, how do we get to them? So I think just continuing to educate them, putting together a campaign for our community to educate them on not just about the masks, but everything about mitigating COVID.
Okay, and to further what Phil had commented on the communication, we would be putting it out through our website, social media, and through the radio, so that it would be instant. And there again, that depends on the timing. If it's a Saturday night or whatever, we would do our best to get the message out. Okay.
So I think given the fact that we're having to try to model ourselves after larger centers, I know that the city of Edmonton has gone for a longer time frame just because of the difficulties of trying to rescind and change, and kind of what Councillor War was saying before is that things can change overnight, and for that reason too makes it difficult for us to be that responsive and that nimble. I would suggest maybe going for a longer time frame, just because depending when it happens, it could fall at a difficult time that wouldn't coincide with our regular meeting schedule. So I would be more comfortable with maybe spreading it a little bit further, maybe a month and a half or 2 months at least, just because I think we're putting a lot of onus on our staff who may or may not be in the midst of trying to create other mitigating effects for operations, because foreseeably, that means that more people in the community are suffering from the effects of COVID-19 too. So I would like to see it as seamless as possible, which might be impossible to say, but if it's easier for administration and for us to be able to enact it for a longer period of time, that would be my recommendation.
The research I did on other bylaws, there were some communities that ranged from having the bylaw enacted for 3 to 6 months. And whether the watch enhanced designation was still in place, the bylaw was there for a 3 to 6 month time period. We could certainly add that in.
Well, seeing how we're not.
I'm also in agreement with the age limit, the 4.1A. I don't really like that age of 10 years old. I agree with Councillor Rudick that 10 years old is fairly old, and these kids have all been in school. They've all been wearing masks, and even at 4 years old. So I would definitely recommend that age number of 10 be decreased to possibly even 2 years old.
I concur with Councillors Rajek and Ridick on the age. I do believe we need to lower that, and I would be happy with school age, so 5 and 5 and up.
I'm not going to argue or debate with my fellow councillors. I think they know my position already. I think that mandatory mask bylaws are only going to result in a lot of people bashing at other people. I think it's going to cause us some problems and friction among residents every time they see somebody who isn't wearing a mask because they can't wear a mask. And I would be one of those. I wear a mask even though actually medically I should not be wearing a mask. But if I was to walk into a place not wearing a mask, everybody's going to stare at me like I'm an evil, evil person. And that is happening all over currently right now, wherever masks are in. The aspect is there is one person in this province who is paid, hired, and trained to make a decision of this nature, and that is Dr. Henshaw. She has not made it as a mandatory across the province, and I would have to assume it's probably because the science would not support her to make it mandatory. Politically, the province wants to hand it off to the municipalities, to councillors elected in local communities who I dare say are not medical experts. I have a science degree, I have a biological degree, I did a lot of research. I'm not a medical expert, but I'm being asked to make a decision that should be made by a medical expert. And I don't feel that that is appropriate. So I'm likely going to vote against this just out of sheer spite to publicly go on record that Dr. Henshaw should be doing her job. If a mandatory mask bylaw is required, if mandatory masks are required, then she either should be doing her job or be fired, because it's not my job, it's her job. And if she is unwilling to do it, then there has to be a reason for it, and that's probably because it's only a small point in the safety. And I'm concerned that people wearing masks incorrectly end up with a false security, believing that they are safe when they pull their mask off, wipe their nose, and infect themselves. Because it's their hands, it's sanitation, it's a whole bunch of things. So I just think that it is really unfortunate that we have a provincial government and a medical officer that aren't doing their job, but expect councillors to do it for them. Thank you.
Okay, can anybody hear me now? No. I don't understand what the hell's going on. Doesn't this have a speaker on it someplace too? You can hear me? Okay, then I'm just going to talk into this thing. Okay, so we are talking about putting a bylaw in place and having it ready to go if and when our community reaches a certain status through Alberta Health Services. I do not believe that wearing a mask is going to cause COVID to go away. I do believe it's a small tool in a toolbox that we should all have and to look after ourselves and our families and others. By the nature of some of the mail and some of the comments I've received, people that want us to put this bylaw in place, that they are so much more superior than anybody that's not wearing a mask today. It drives me nuts, and I can tell what Councillor Burry has said. There is going to be some problems within our community because not everybody agrees. I do not believe it is the municipalities, this council's decision to make a medical decision like this. I do believe it lies with the province, but The province is unwilling to make that. So if by chance we get to this enhanced level in our community, we will have a bylaw ready to go. I do not believe that individual owners of businesses should have a fine of $200 if they don't display. A mandatory masking is in place in this town. But without that, we have no other means of enforcing it. If they let people into their business that aren't wearing a mask, again, we're forcing them to ask customers not to come into their business because those customers are unwilling to wear a mask. So no one's right and nobody's wrong in this argument. Those out there that think that if we all wore a mask, that COVID would go away, seriously, that's not how this works. That doesn't make them any more in the right than somebody that feels that by keeping their social distance from everybody and keeping their sanitary protocols up and washing their hands and stuff, that's enough, because they're both right. There will be some enforcement problems. The taxpayers of Vegreville will be on the hook when we go to court to collect this money because the province didn't pass this law. So it'll be the taxpayers that will be paying for lawyers and court time. So when we get to that point, and we've got to refine this law a little bit more, this bylaw, and we will have it in place, and hopefully we will have a communications strategy and a rollout plan to talk to the businesses, to talk to the community, and telling everybody to be tolerant of each other. Because that's what it's going to take. Because the people that will support it will think that they are superior, and the people that won't support it based on that they're saying it's an invasion of their privacy and that we have no right to enforce that upon them. It's a no-win situation. But when something as serious as the health issues that COVID is causing within this province, and without any participation from the Premier's office, we will have to take this on ourselves. And we will have to take on the consequences that come with it. So as of right now, we're all agreeing, and we need to work on a little bit of communication with Alberta Health regarding about when we become a community on the list and at what number that would be. And I will work on that. We will have more talk on how long, when this bylaw comes into effect, how long it'll last. I would imagine it'll probably be, by the look around this room, around 3 months. I myself personally would support a 5-year-old, not a 2-year-old. I don't think 2 and 3-year-old, we're not going to be charging them, but if we charge their parents, it doesn't make sense. 5-year-olds are already in school system. They already know that they're wearing a mask. Those are my thoughts. And I hope we don't get to that point. I hope that this community keeps doing what it has been doing and putting the health of others in front of their shopping trips and not paying attention to the consequences to their actions. And up to now, we've all done a good job. So that's where we will leave this at right now. And we will look at this again at the next meeting with a couple of changes in it. And I will see what I can do through the Premier's office and Alberta Health regarding the exact addresses of the numbers within the county. Is anybody, Councillor Warwa?
I just thought I'd bring up because I didn't address the age number as we had gone around. So I would just, in planning purposes, I'd support the 5 years as well because it's kind of a that threshold of the schools. So just so you have an idea from that. And thank you for looking into and checking with the numbers and the possibility of the separation, because to me, that answer will completely decide my idea of threshold, because if they cannot separate us and we are being told outright no from separation, that's going to mean a different number for me before I'm willing to enact versus if it was a Vegreville only number. Given the fact that we know that even a number of 6 or 7, we could be talking about 0 cases, not only in our area, in our closest area, it could be a furthest away community. So that'll be a big factor. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So I know this issue means a lot to for different reasons to everybody in the room. And no matter what, we're just all trying to do the right thing here, the right thing for our community. So we will take another look at it. We'll tweak it a little bit and hopefully we won't have to use it. But until then, I encourage everybody to wear a mask when they're in public spaces. But I don't really think that if you walk into a business and they're asking you to wear a mask, and if you don't need to be belligerent with them, you can just leave. You have a choice.
Two councillors for the age, Councillor Barry and Councillor Waters.
Oh, sorry.
Comment on the age.
Yes, I feel 10 is a little too late with some of the children, as they are school age and they are using them in schools. I know my 3-year-old granddaughter wears it. She just automatically pulls it out and tells me that I should be wearing it. So I'm good with age 5.
I'd be satisfied with age 5. I know at the corn maze, we had it 6 and up. And most of the kids, even younger than that, were willing to be wearing their masks. So.
Okay, so our potential bylaw will say a 5-year-old. Okay, so does anybody else have any other comments that they want to make right now? Councillor Rudick.
I just have a question. So the last meeting that we had, the legislative committee meeting, was talking about in the town of Vegreville buildings having a masking request for the public coming into our buildings. Is that going to be separate from this bylaw, or this will be the trigger for both the community and for our town of Vegreville spaces?
So when this bylaw, when it's triggered, this bylaw enacted will be for all public buildings, including our town facilities. So they won't be separated.
Okay, thank you for the work you guys put in on that, and we'll have a plan and we'll have a strategy in place and how we'll roll out the education to business owners and the community at large. Okay, thank you very much for that. Next up, we have some correspondence from Mrs. Katelko.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a letter dated November 20th, 2020. Mayor of Vegreville and Council, my name is Jessica Katelko. I reside in the county of Minburn, along with my husband and 3 young children. I write this letter to you as a concerned county of Minburn resident, full-time healthcare worker in Vegreville, and parent of 2 school-aged children. I have remained impartial in regard to the topic of a municipal bylaw for mandatory mask use in Vegreville up until a recent point when I accessed the services of local Vegreville business. During a visit to get my 3-year-old son's haircut, he was promptly called to the salon chair after the previous patron's services were completed without any wiping down of the chair or tools that were used on the previous patient. When I asked the business owner to wipe down the chair and tools, he willingly did. However, when I asked him why he was not wiping down the chair between patrons, he proceeded to tell me it was because he had received too many complaints from clients stating that they did not want to access services if patrons were required to wear masks, and he was using disinfecting products to wipe down the chairs down. This comment by the shop owner brought many feelings to surface for me, some of which were anger, disappointment, and fear. I was angry that a local business owner was being forced to make a decision between making money and keeping his business afloat and keeping himself and the residents of Vegreville safe amidst a global pandemic. I was disappointed in the people of Vegreville, as some of them are obviously failing to see or maybe don't understand why we all need to do everything in our abilities to keep all the residents of Vegreville and surrounding areas safe. I had fear for the first time, as I felt the community that I work in, support, and choose to have my children attend school in was not taking every step available to them to protect our small rural community from COVID-19. Our oldest daughter has multiple medical diagnoses and is at a higher risk for getting more complications from COVID-19, and we have had to send her to school along with her younger sister, as my husband and I both need to work full-time to pay our bills. We have had to put trust in our school system and our town and believe that they are doing everything possible to keep our kids safe in school, along with the parents and grandparents of those students. I completely trust that our schools are doing an extraordinary job and everything in their abilities to keep our kids safe, as well as our teachers and support staff. However, I no longer believe that our town is doing all that they could be doing. I also do not think it is right for businesses to have to choose between having to make money and public safety. In my mind, this shouldn't have to be a question at all. When we have elderly Vegreville residents scared to leave their homes, seniors who have not seen their family in months, and Albertans who are having to die alone, why should mask use not be mandatory everywhere? I know that I likely would not get seriously sick or die from COVID-19, but my 87-year-old grandmother definitely would, and would likely be denied ventilator support if she required one should Alberta's hospitalization rates continue on the exponential growth rate that they are. I am also pretty sure that all of you as council members have a family member, if not yourself, who would be at risk of experiencing complications from COVID-19. I encourage you to look into the COVID-19 numbers for the city of Leduc and their bylaws regarding mandatory mask use. Mask use was not mandated until the city had 10 active cases. Leduc went from a few active cases to over 60 active cases in just over a week. This is not the time to be reactionary, but rather the time to be preventative in the face of a pandemic that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. I'm respectfully requesting that strong consideration be given to the recommendation of a mandatory mask policy to help protect more Vegreville and surrounding area residents and our business community. Respectfully, Jessica Katelko.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to get a motion for receive and file on that correspondence, if I could. Councillor Lemko. Any discussion? Councillor Orwell.
So I definitely applaud anybody who takes the time to share their opinions with us. I mean, that's important to know what their concerns are, if for nothing else, for us to address them. Unfortunately, I'm going to bring a couple things forward that were in this letter we received that actually support exactly what Councillor Barry said. So first of all, if this is, you know, all these points that are being made, if they're valid and let's say completely accurate, again, this is why shouldn't be for us to decide one way or the other. It should be the province decided. Several points within there have nothing to do with the mask bylaw, unfortunately. And I understand why the experience she shared would have been very concerning, but disinfecting of products has literally nothing to do with whether we put a mask bylaw into place. And it's actually a business's requirement in order to open again to follow certain cleaning regime. That was in fact put in place by the province, like all of these health decisions should be. So I appreciate them and I look at that and I respect somebody sending them in. However, a lot of things are still opinion one way or the other. And that's why I will obviously take into consideration, but I am still also very strongly that these decisions should not be coming from us as far as masks.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other councillor that, Phil, what do you have?
Just in response to Councillor Wallace, that is correct. All hair salons have their specific guidelines that they have to follow. And if they're not being followed, then any member of the public has the ability to make a public health complaint to that specific business for not following guidelines. And like I say, it doesn't have to come back to the town. They can contact public health and that will be investigated.
Okay, so I know this family very well, and I know that they support our community, and I know Mrs. Katelko is very legitimately about her children's health and the health of her grandmother and the citizens of Vegreville. So I don't take it as any sort of threat or anything like that. The part about the business not cleaning the chair or the devices they're using, totally against the law for that business to reopen. The part where Mrs. Katelko says that businesses have to make a choice between making a living or letting people not wear a mask or not following the rules. Believe me, when the mask law bylaw, if it does come into effect, businesses are going to face consequences. They're going to have to turn customers away. It's actually, the bylaw will have a bigger negative effect on businesses than any other thing that we can do for them right now. because they'll have to tell people they're not allowed to come into their business. They'll have to actually argue with them, and they'll subject themselves to a $200 fine for not doing what our bylaw says. So it has just a reversed effect on businesses than what doing nothing would. And I would tell Mrs. Kotelko and her family that she is taking this to the wrong level of government. We will do what we feel is right when we get to a certain point in our community. I do thank her for her letter, and anybody that takes the time and help us with decision making. I know I've had 8 other emails and telephone conversations, and none of them were as well spoken as this. They were not as polite, weren't blaming us of being lacking intelligence. Sorry. Councillor Rudick.
So we have spoken again tonight, and we have on previous occasions when we've discussed masking and our inability to be able to protect ourselves as a municipality, our employees, or our citizens, or our businesses, because ultimately this is a provincial health decision that has been left for us to decide piecemeal. In the forwarding of information, I would ask that we include our local MLA again to ensure that she understands how difficult this is. Even something as simple as reporting numbers versus the County of Minburn or the town proper. For my own personal feeling, I think that's kind of a moot point, because the actual physical line of the town and the county, that people are fluid between. We've talked about that for a while, that we're a region. And for that reason, I think it makes it easier to identify for the province potentially, to be able to say that it's County of Minburn. But I think that we're not being heard as a province. They need to make these decisions. And lucky for us, we're not in a crisis just yet. But I think that's the issue, is that we need to again push this back up to the province. And if we can please use all matters of communication, because I think Mrs. Kotelko's identifying an issue with the business is something that I had spoken about earlier, that there are businesses that feel that they can't say no to people that are coming in. So the opposite of what you had just described is that businesses are saying yes to people that they wouldn't normally say yes to, because they don't feel comfortable turning them away when they don't have a mask. So that is the question that I've been asked by smaller businesses right now. So I think we're seeing a myriad of issues. Again, we need to push this up higher, and it needs to go to the province in every venue that we can.
I'm not sure why they would not let somebody in, because there's only one business, 2 businesses in town that promote that you must wear a mask.
Sorry, I didn't describe that clearly. For example, if I have MS and I run a business, and I would like everybody that comes in my business to wear a mask, and they come in and I need to make that sale and I don't feel comfortable saying no to that person, I might let them come in without a mask because I need to make that sale rather than protect my health and their health. So that is the situation that a lot of business owners are experiencing. So the opposite of what you were describing, both are happening, and I think both are going to be equally divisive, and it's not good for our community to find reasons to disagree with one another. We should be uniting and finding things to make us stronger together. That's kind of been our message right from the very beginning, is being positive and banding together. So.
Well, like we already said, we will take steps that are needed to be taken in the lack of other leadership on this issue at a certain point. Do I like being reactive and not proactive? But I can tell you right now that I've heard from hundreds of people in this community that said that the day that you guys make a mandatory masking bylaw will be the day that you'll have some trouble. So out of the now 10 complaints that we've had that I know of to bring a masking policy bylaw into town, the other side outweighs it by a lot. I still feel that if we all take precautions on where we spend our time and how we spend our time and how our distancing and our personal hygiene when we come back to our community, we can be in the same boat that we have been in since March. I would actually beg people not to go to Edmonton right now. Why would you want to go to one of the hottest zones in the world right now and then come back to our community? So, if you want to be a person that is thinking about other people in your family, stay home. Stay within our little bubble here.
If I might add to that, though, there's people like myself medically that if I don't go there every month, I'm in big trouble because I have to go medically.
And I understand that.
You know,
You're not running into Costco. You're going to get.
no, I'm in and out.
So let's be reasonable about what I'm saying. What I'm saying, if given a choice, go to Edmonton or stay at home, stay at home. Think about the rest of your community. Okay, so I think we spent some time on the masking this, and it's not that I don't appreciate Mrs. Katelko's letter was well written and she brought up some good points. So I have had other letters from people outside of our community that are just on the opposite, that want to come here because they don't have to wear a mask. And I've told them flat out, don't come here. I feel that we don't need to put in a bylaw right now that when you're in public spaces, especially indoors, you should probably wear a mask. It's just the right thing to do. And if it comes down to that, we have to make a bylaw in this town to enforce it. We're ready to do that. We're also ready to take on the responsibility of paying when we go to court. There's a lot that's going on here. We are actually asking businesses to turn customers away when this bylaw becomes into effect, or they'll face financial responsibility for not doing what we tell them to do. I just want everybody in this community to understand that we are always thinking about what's best for this community, and one person does not know what's right and what's wrong. But what is right is that we all take the time to be careful of what we do and respect that our actions will have reactions within our community. That is the main point here, because wearing a mask does not cure COVID. So that's what I have to say. Thank you all for your inputs. You telling me that the microphone wasn't working? Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Huh? Yeah, we do. Receive and file. Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next up, we have correspondence from the Associate Deputy Minister of Justice.
This is addressed to Mayor McPhee. I am pleased to advise that the first disbursement of funds to your municipality under the Municipal Policing Assistance Grant, or the MPAG, and the Police Officer Grant, the POG programs, have been made to your municipality. Enclosed are copies of the signed agreements for your records. The agreements for your municipality's MPAG and POG grants are effective April 1, 2020 and expire March 31, 2021. If you have any questions, there's a contact information. Dennis Cooley, Associate Deputy Minister, Solicitor General.
Okay, I'd take a motion to receive and file. Councilor Waters, any discussion? Nobody wants to know how much? Come on. Well, I do. Paul, do you have that number ready?
Police officer grant is 50,000, 100,000, but 50,000 is the first advance. And the MPAG is 244,000 and change. And the first advance is 122,000 change. Oh, my mic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Casey. One other question. This is nothing new. This is happens every year.
Yes.
It's disappeared.
Thank you again.
Just press the space.
What's that?
Just press the space bar and hold it.
Now he lost the whole
Oh,
Zoom.
I got that.
Okay, yes, it's every year we get
$50,000 out of the, or $100,000 out of the police officer grant. The first half is paid in October, the second half is paid sometime in March. And then the other grant is about 244,000, and we got 50% with this payment, and we'll get the other payment in the spring.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Rajak?
You could probably figure this out, but out of that grant, what would the percentage be compared to what our actual expenses are? 20%?
10.
10?
9%. Really?
Yeah, I would say probably about between 15 and 20%. I don't know the exact number, but it's, we pay the RCMP about $1.1 million, so a year. So that's, we get 300 and some odd thousand dollars back. But then we have other expenses in there as well, so.
Like building a new building. Okay, all those in favor, receive and file? Thank you. Phil, do you have this next one from the curling club?
This is a letter from the Heather Curling Club dated November 6, 2020. Town of Vegreville council members. The Heather Curling Club would like to thank Town Council for taking the time to review the club's financial assistance request presented Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. In response to the financial assistance proposal received via email November 4th, 2020 by the Heather Curling Club, we are pleased to accept the town's offer. With this proposal acceptance letter, we will be hosting our AGM on November 16th, 2020, which will notify our members of the town's financial assistance to reduce our rental fees by $20,000 and forgo the $5,000 contingency fund. We will also discuss the upcoming curling season to commence December 27th, 2020. We look forward to providing safe recreational activity in the community for years to come. And it's signed by the executive of the Heather Curling Club.
Okay, a motion. Councillor Barry, sorry, he beat you to it. Okay, any discussion? Councillor Waters.
So this assistance we are helping them out with here financially is just for 2020, 2021 season.
Correct.
And then we review it after, see what's happening.
For sure, we know that this was just for this year, and it's called the COVID rule. They were supposed to be having a work party tonight. I don't know if they are. They're freezing the boards in tonight or not. Everybody in the club is a little worried that Hinshaw's meeting with the cabinet today may shut down non-essential sporting things, and they're thinking that maybe they would be wasting their time. So I don't know if they were going to go ahead with it tonight or not. They're just starting putting the boards in for the freezing in. Go ahead, Councillor Warwa.
And I just think it's important to us, as well as noting it being the 1 year, but for anybody who's wondering about it, that it is we would incur cost as well. So it's not a case of taking on cost or there being no cost to us. There would be a cost to us regardless if they weren't able to go ahead. So that's kind of a big point in our assistance too.
Well, the forgiveness, the $20,000
Yeah.
is what the bills would be over the next couple months that we would pay if they weren't there at all. So, Councillor Lemko.
As with the curling club going into the multiplex, where are the pickleballers going to? Is there another facility? Have we talked with it? Because that's going to come up on our agenda at some point in time. Have we had discussions with them at all?
Yeah, but we found a home for the pickleballers.
Yes, Your Worship, we have agreed to be at the social center, so part of the facility staff are working to have 2 courts taped out for them.
Thank you. I know when we talked about this earlier, there was some concern over the tape on the floor, but it's fine.
the facilities department actually has found a tape that, a sporting tape that will actually work and not do any damage to the floor. It'll just require some scrubbing and when they remove the tape, whenever they move on in the springtime.
Good, thank you. I knew we could solve that. Okay. We have a motion on the floor to receive and file. All those in favor? Carried. Next up, with Craig.
Request for council decision, and the topic is Christmas 2020 staff appreciation. And the proposal is to provide chamber bucks to town staff in lieu of the town Christmas party. So the background on this is annually, the town has sponsored a Christmas party for all town employees. In light of the COVID-19 coronavirus and with Alberta health restrictions for limited number of people for social gatherings, the town canceled the Christmas party in September 2020. Council tasked senior leadership to bring options forward to council to show their appreciation to the staff. Senior leadership presented the concept of chamber bucks for the employees. By utilizing chamber bucks, the funds will stay within the community and support local businesses. So financial implications, the Christmas party budget would be reallocated to purchase chamber bucks for town staff. The communications senior leadership will communicate this message to their respective managers and employees. So the recommendation that town council approve the reallocation of $11,600 designated for the town-sponsored Christmas party to the purchase of chamber bucks for town employees.
Councilor Brajek, you make a motion. Any discussion? Councilor Barry.
I think it's important for us to show appreciation to our staff. I think over the course of the year, and this year in particular, they do a tremendous amount of work on behalf of the town. And I think that this year in particular, they faced a lot of adversities. And I think we need to show them just how much we appreciate them and how much the town should appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Lemko.
I, for one, would like to also thank the town staff for the work they did this past season, in spite of all the challenges that they faced. I like to see the fact that the money that is going for the appreciation is chamber bucks, so it's to be used in the community, which will also benefit our businesses, and I think that's a great idea.
Okay. I as well. I applaud the effort that the men put into this, and the fact that the chamber plays a role in it, and all the businesses that accept the chamber bucks, and the money will be spent in town within our own business sector is awesome. So it's, again, something, a little more good news coming out of this town hall. So, I mean, I will miss the fact that we won't have the Christmas party. I've always enjoyed it, and seeing, you know, getting together and them getting their award pins and their service awards and stuff. But this will work out, you know, we're doing the best we can. So that's all we can do. So all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to council reports, and we're going to start with Councilor Rudick.
Okay, since we last met, there have been a lot of virtual meetings. So I just want to say thank you to the Legion for live streaming this year's Remembrance Day events. There were a lot of people, in fact, I think a lot of people that would have not traditionally attended. So I too enjoyed being able to tune in from a distance and listen to various local celebrities acknowledge the service of our veterans and those that have served for our country and for our community. November 16th to 20th, and also this week is FCM Advocacy Days. So I've been attending a number of different meetings online with various elected officials from all major parties. and last week's legislative committee meetings and our operational and capital budget meetings. I want to say thank you to all of the administrative work that's gone into making sure that it's a comprehensive, compassionate budget that has both foresight and also some understanding that it's been an unusually difficult year for a lot of different departments. So thank you for having that tone in what you presented to us. Numbers sometimes seem a little bit cold, but I don't feel like this was a dispassionate presentation. I think it was the opposite. So thank you to all the staff that made sure that we received the information in a way that we could make good decisions. We decorated the Christmas float on the 19th, and I taped the Talk of the Town on November 20th. On Saturday, November 21st, I was asked to attend a Zoom meeting with Aaron O'Toole, the leader of the Conservative Party, with Ukrainian Canadian community leaders from across the country, talking about a variety of different issues. And very interesting to see the wide range of people that are represented across the country. And Vegreville was a community that many of them are familiar with, so it was great to be able to represent Vegreville in that setting. And Saturday is Very Vegreville Christmas Light Up Parade. Again, a great way to be able to socially distance and still celebrate being able to be together and have some positive effects in the community. And tonight's meeting.
Thank you very much. Councilor Warwick.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Many of the same items. I started mine off with November 17th. I had an FCSS board meeting. Just a few things that I'd like to bring forward from that one. As you know, they were working on campaigns around Family Violence Prevention Month. That was a little bit more difficult this year in the fact that they couldn't host some of the events, which ends up being a little bit ironic that due to the current health situation, now is a time more than ever where they're dealing with problems that fall within family violence, but yet on the same token, it's the hardest time to be able to do some of the outreach, but they have still gone ahead. You will see some of the campaign that is, they're sharing still some of the posters and getting the word out about ways to reach out with family violence. But it's certainly something to keep in mind as we talk about mental health, because that was a good portion of our meeting on various areas of mental health. Another thing that I wanted to just highlight was their volunteer program. So as you know, they couldn't host a volunteer luncheon like they do some years where we've had over 300 people. However, their decision to do the nomination program that then was a gift card has actually worked out really, really well. And the last numbers when we were at the meeting, they were within about 60 people from what we usually get for turnout, recognized as volunteers. So I think that's very encouraging, and it was a nice little thing to people at the time. And obviously, I would say that if anything, maybe our community has come to appreciate our volunteers on an even higher level than we ever did before. As we've seen, almost every successful event that we've had has had some type of combination of some staffing, but a lot of volunteers taking part. And one obviously was our corn maze being a big example of that. So that was a great thing to still see going. They did talk a little bit about their after-school youth program, and just the numbers I would want to share is that there's 3 age categories when it comes to some of their after-school programming, and all 3 of the age categories were basically full programming, just for a piece of information on that. And then was a fair amount of discussion about the regional upcoming meeting that was taking place. So later on the 17th, I had the LEDGE and CAO meeting. And then on the 18th was the FCSS regional meeting. And that was originally going to be hosted here. It was done via Zoom. Still very, very good, successful meeting. And I was asked to bring greetings on behalf of someone on behalf of the town, but is the current chair of our local FCSS, which I was able to do. And it was nice to see on that meeting was everything from elected officials to, in some cases, CAOs or members of the different FCSS boards. And the 2 kind of big things that I'll bring forward to it is one of their guest speakers was Ken Dropko, who in his previous time, of course, was a principal, a superintendent, and then he has been with the government of Alberta for since 2005. His current role is the Executive Director of Family and Community Services with FCSS and the Ministry of Community and Social Services. So the biggest message that he brought forward, I would say, was about cooperation and about understanding that there is, each community is facing very difficult and different circumstances, I would say is a big point of that. One of the things on the second part of the meeting after the, the introductions and the going over, they broke out into breakout rooms, and we'll bring forward what the results were of those of the breakout rooms. But the four main questions that they tried to get everyone into was to discuss what are the unique regional vulnerabilities. So really looking, identifying those, what social impacts do you see within those areas? Number three was how can we better understand our regional needs? And then the fourth was next steps put forward. So I think it was a good way to get some ideas flowing from different people. And then Councillor Lemko, if you want me, was on as well. He may want to add a few additional things there. I was on the 19th for the operating budget and also for the Vegreville float decorating. On the 21st, I as well attended the Very Vegreville Christmas. And I can tell you, I've received a lot of messages at home about people actually saying that they were very thankful that some places' attitude is very much, we either run or we shut down. And that's what they're hearing. And we're hearing that on all sides of our safety debates too, right? We've got one hard or one other. And the messaging that I got was that they were thankful that we'd taken the time to show that there can be a middle ground between completely open and completely closed. And actually they said that they thought it was very nice to see council and just the way we were able to speak with them. A couple of people actually suggested to me that they hope that this is the way we continue in future years. They actually said that they thought it was nicer being able to come through this way and had more opportunity to bring forward seniors that may have faced some, concern with walking with the ice, some of the cold concern, or even with some of the little ones. So believe it or not, I think there's a lot of people that hope that we actually continue with some version of stationary parade in future years. And tonight's meeting, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brajak.
On November 17th, I attended the Legislative Committee meeting as well as the CAO Council meeting. November 19th, the Operational Budget meeting. And again, I'd like to thank administration for providing us with in-depth budgeting. Thank you. November 21st, our Christmas light up and parade. And I think we were trying to keep track of how many vehicles were going through. And I think we can all agree to guesstimate at around 230 vehicles. So that was quite a popular event. And tonight's council meeting, I also want to mention about the Chamber Christmas fundraising promotion. It'll be the Radiothon. So the Chamber board members were busy recruiting a lot of the businesses to donate to certain items for that radio auction. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all our participating businesses. That radio auction will be starting next week and will run for about 10 to 12 days. We have had, again, exceptional support from our community businesses. And also I want to mention the Shop Here website campaign that has started. So if anyone knows of any businesses, small businesses in town requiring a website design, to please contact either Economic Development, Chamber of Commerce, or Community Futures. So that would be would help the businesses a lot during this COVID. And that is my report.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Okay, thank you. I've attended much the same meetings as my fellow councillors. Just to add, with the stationary parade at Very Vegreville Christmas, it was really nice. I do agree, it is a nice way to see our residents come through, because when you're out through Canada, you're not really looking up and seeing the people, and they don't see half of us. So yeah, there may be an addition or a change to the way we do these parades. I don't know, it's pretty good. And yes, seeing over 200 people with many, many smiling faces with everything that's going on, that was a breath of fresh air as well. So yeah, like I said, basically all the same other meetings as my fellow councillors. So that is my report.
Okay, Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. November 17th, our ledge meeting and our CAO meeting. On the 19th, yes, it was a rather long day of budget talks on operating the capital, but I'll agree with fellow councillors that I thought it was very fruitful, and I think that it'll be very pleasing results when we finalize it. On November the 20th, I participated in the Northern Lights Library board meeting via Zoom. Basically, three highlights. The 2021 budget has been approved now, and there's no levy increase to the municipalities or library boards. A new plan of service has been completed, and that'll be available and online distributed quite soon. And with recent staff changes, which included executive director, a new executive director should be hired soon. And with COVID changing how operations are conducted, we considered that it's a good time right now to do a complete organizational review or core review for staffing, department makeup, reporting lines, library services. So a consultant has been hired who's very competent in this area to do a full review for us. And we anticipate that a preliminary report should be brought back to us in time for our next meeting, February the 26th, I believe it is, in 2021. So it's just a good time to take a complete look at how Northern Lights operates. On the 19th, yes, we decorated the float. I thought that it was an extremely interesting evening there of us all getting together. And it certainly paid off on the 21st because, as Councillor Lemko was pointing out, we definitely were the attraction of the parade. I think Tim Hortons free coffee and donuts might have been a second, close second. Actually, it was very fun. I thought the float did come out nice. We got lots of compliments. What I appreciated about it was the number of people that actually stopped and spoke to us. And actually, it was nice to receive a few thank yous from the citizens. I also thought that the children sitting in most of the back seats, enjoying the ride and their hot chocolate and donuts, might have thought that it was a pretty good idea compared to standing on the sidewalk watching us come by. So yeah, I can agree that this might be a fruitful way of expanding it. I didn't get to see into the vehicle sometimes as easy, tinted glass and all that sort of thing, but I thought that it was really heartwarming, and I thought it was really well when you see that many vehicles come by, and it was pretty well a steady stream, so I was really impressed by it. And in tonight's council meeting, that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Lemko, what have you been up to?
Like the rest of us, we've been quite busy. On November 17th, I attended the FCSS board meeting with Councillor Warlow. And just to add to her report, I want to just touch on the welcoming and inclusive community, connected community, WIC. We have a University of Calgary student coming here to do, or is here doing her practicum. And she's Jasmine, and she's from Vancouver, and she's come back to do a practicum. We're very fortunate to have that. Her what she's doing is what it takes to make Vegreville a welcoming, inclusive, and connected community. So, where residents and visitors can enjoy a sense of belonging, safety, and accessibility. So she's doing a project, and you'll see this as it unfolds. And I know as council, we've been asked to fill out a survey, and that's the first. The senior admin and senior leaders in the community will be asked to fill that out comes out. And so expect to hear some more of that program. We also talked about some grants that FCSS is looking at. They're trying to find some nonprofit partners for the Community Facility Enhancement Program, putting a grant together for that. They're also working with a bigger region on the Early Learning and Child grant. This is a big grant. And it's got a lot of regional interest, all the way through County of Flagstaff, Viking, and Tofield. They are in need of board members. Our board is through attrition and some people leaving. We're looking for 5 members on the FCSS board, a community member with no children at home, youth member, 15 to 18 years old, a person at large, a ministerial, which they will provide us, and then 18 to 25-year-old adult is being looked for. So we know somebody who's willing to put their time as a volunteer. We welcome them aboard. On the 17th, I also attended the Ledge meeting, CAO and council meeting. November 18th, the FCSS regional meeting, which Councillor Wallace spoke of. The 18th, I also attended the library board meeting, and the majority of topics of discussion there were policy related, updating our policies and looking at our bylaws, changing some fees. A letter of understanding with the town was some topic of discussion was there. And they're also currently looking for 2 board members. So we're 2 board members short there. And a little bit of talk about what COVID could mean again to us and curbside pickup and those kind of things. We're preparing in advance for if that announcement comes. On the 19th, I attended the Operation Capital Budget meeting and really enjoyed the day, listened to the asks of our leaders and such. And it was well put together, well done. November 19th, also, we decorated the Christmas float at the fire hall, and that came together as a team builder. And then together on the 21st, we stood outside and froze while everybody drove by in warm cars, and no wonder they were all smiley and happy. And most of the children, when asked to share their donuts, the answer was no. So I really enjoyed it, and I think we all did. And tonight's council meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all for what you do every day. So since our last council meeting, I attended the Remembrance Day ceremony at the Cenotaph, and it was a fairly chilly day, but it was a lot smaller than normal, that's for sure. But it was still very nice, and the fact that they had it out there so people could watch it was a very good thing. So, and then we went back to the Legion and had a little bit of conversation, and it was a very nice afternoon there. So on the 12th, well, I guess I don't have to tell you about my dentist appointment. I went to Chipman for the John S. Patuque Water Commission meeting, and there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of activity in the Heartland area, and it seems like our water line seems to be involved in it all the time. People want to get through our right-of-ways and stuff, so there's a lot going on there right now. The 17th was our Ledge meeting, which, again, everybody was there. We talked about it. On the 18th, I had a conversation with the town hall with Dr. Hinshaw and Premier Kenny and Minister Allard and Minister Tays were on that call, and they cleared a few things up for us, and hopefully moving forward, well, hopefully tomorrow we'll have a little bit more guidelines on COVID, what's going on, especially in some of the larger urban areas, and hopefully that they can get some of that straightened out. All in all, it was good. It's the first time I had a conversation at all, or even listened too much to the new Minister of Municipal Affairs, but she seems a very intelligent person and very astute, and really looking forward to the opportunity to work with municipalities. So everybody was pretty happy with all of her comments. I did help after the operating budget meeting. I did attend the workshop where we put the float together, and again, you know, untangling Christmas lights can be a chore at times. It can take you down a few notches. And then the Christmas parade, which was a lot of fun. The ice carving guy they were pretty funny over there. I had a couple assistants for the countdown for the candle light up, and then I rushed back to see how cold you all were, and it was kind of funny. We had a nice heated truck that we could have went in and got warmed up, but I think I was the only one that went in there. But it was a very nice evening, and I got a few thank yous the next day for council just to be there and for the kids to have something to see. So it was well worth it, that's for sure. And this morning I had Alberta Hub meeting, Zoom meeting, and then tonight's regular council meeting. So that's it for our agenda items. We do have one closed session item regarding land. So I would now take a motion to go in closed session. Councilor Rudick, all those in favor? Carried.